Club Candy by Dwight Miller Jr. Chapter 11, I Got Robbed Again. Paste this entire text into 11 labs. The second time, there was no warning. It was a month later, a sweltering evening when the air was so thick it felt like a weight on the chest. The assailant was not the same desperate dope fiend, but someone harder, colder. He had been watching them, learning their rhythms. He did not wait for the children to leave. He struck in the middle of the afternoon rush, a calculated act of terror designed to create chaos. He shoved his way through the small crowd of children, his face a grim mask of intent. He went straight for Eleanor, who was making change for a little girl. He knocked the metal box from her lap, the coins scattering across the porch with a sound like broken teeth. As Eleanor instinctively bent to protect the money and the children, he shoved her hard. She stumbled backward, her head hitting the brick wall of the house with a sickening thud. She didn't cry out, but a pained grunt escaped her lips as she slid to the ground, dazed. The children screamed, a chorus of pure terror. The man scooped up a handful of the scattered bills and coins, his eyes wild. Joey, who had been watching from the front window, his senses on high alert since the first incident, saw it all. He saw the man push his mother. He saw her head hit the wall. He saw her slide to the ground, and in that instant, something inside him broke. The calm, watchful boy was consumed by a white-hot, silent rage that was absolute. He moved without thinking, a predator unleashed. He bypassed the front door and shot out the back, vaulting the low fence of their small yard. He knew the alleys, the shortcuts, the neighborhood's secret trails better than anyone. While the assailant was still scrambling to get away, Joey was already ahead of him, circling around the block, his heart pounding with a cold, clear purpose. He intercepted the man in the narrow alley behind the liquor store. The man, thinking he was in the clear, had slowed to a walk, stuffing the stolen money into his pockets. He never saw Joey coming. Joey didn't say a word. He picked up a loose brick from a crumbling wall, its weight a solid, satisfying presence in his hand. He swung it with all the force of his wiry, adolescent body. The brick connected with the man's knee, and the sound of bone crunching was loud and obscene in the quiet alley. The man screamed, a high, thin sound of agony, and went down. Joey stood over him, his chest heaving, the brick still in his hand. The man looked at him, his face a mask of pain and terror. "Please," he whimpered. "I'm sorry. Just take the money." "You put your hands on my mother," Joey said, his voice a low, guttural snarl he didn't recognize as his own. He raised the brick again and brought it down on the man's outstretched hand, the one that had shoved his mother. The crunch was followed by another scream, this one choked and ragged. He would have kept going. At that moment, he was capable of murder. But then he heard his father's voice shouting his name. "Joey, stop! Son, stop!" Joe had seen Joey run out the back and had followed, his heart filled with a terrible premonition. He arrived to the scene of carnage in the alley, his son standing over a broken and bleeding man, a brick in his hand, his face a terrifying mask of rage. Joe grabbed Joey by the shoulders, pulling him back. The brick fell from Joey's hand, clattering on the pavement. "What have you done?" Joe whispered, his voice full of a horrified awe. He looked at his son, and he saw not a boy, but a killer. Joey looked at his father, his eyes cold and hard. "I did what you wouldn't do," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I protected her." He shrugged off his father's hands, his gaze falling on the whimpering man on the ground. He reached down and took the stolen money from the man's pocket, his movements calm and deliberate. He left the man broken in the alley and walked back toward the house, his back straight, his head held high. When he returned to the porch, the chaos had subsided. Eleanor was sitting in her chair, a damp cloth held to the back of her head, her face pale but her eyes clear. She was surrounded by concerned neighbors, but her gaze was fixed on her son as he approached. She saw the blood on his knuckles, the cold, hard set of his jaw, and she knew. A deep, profound sorrow filled her heart, a sorrow that was deeper than any physical pain. She had her money back, but she had lost her son. That night the house was silent, but it was a fractured, broken silence. Joe and Joey did not speak. They were on opposite sides of a chasm that had opened up between them, a chasm of violence and principle. Joe saw his son's act as a descent into the very darkness he had tried to keep at bay. Joey saw it as a necessary ascent to power, the only language the world seemed to understand. And Eleanor, the calm in the storm, the anchor of the family, sat in the quiet of her living room, the tin box in her lap. She knew that the path Joey had chosen that day, a path of violence and retribution, would lead him to a dark and dangerous place. She also knew, with a mother's terrible, unconditional love, that he had done it for her. He had become a monster to protect his mother. And as she held the blood-flecked money in her hands, she wept not for her own pain, but for the terrible, beautiful, and tragic love of her son.